With the iPhone 14 Pro, Apple's flagship iPhone finally feels new again. Welcome everybody to Apple Insider. It is Andrew here, and I have been using iPhones nearly from the beginning. As soon as they were available on Verizon, I have had an iPhone. And throughout that history, there were times where the iPhone felt refreshed. Whether it was via software, such as iOS 7 that brought a whole new look and feel to the operating system, or it was new designs, like the signature designs of like the iPhone 3 and 3GS, the iPhone 4 series, the iPhone 5 series, even going to the more recent versions of the iPhone, there has been kind of changes that has made the phone feel new again. And using the iPhone 14 Pro, in a lot of ways, I have those same feelings. And while I know a lot of you out there may disagree, I want you to hear me out. So let's go ahead and talk about why I am so fond of the iPhone 14 Pro. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the little things of the iPhone 14 Pro, right? So let's get a lot of them out of the way. Apple says better battery life. About an hour or so of battery life, and yeah, I'll say it seems like it's better than on my iPhone 13 Pro, but it's hard to tell because I use it so much, especially at the moment while I'm testing everything out. Apple has also dropped a new color. This is the black version, but as you can see, there's also a purple version, a new deep purple color of the iPhone 14 Pro, and any of the blue colors have gone away. So you just have this black version, this midnight black, you have silver white, you've got gold, and you have deep purple now. Apple has upgraded some internal specs, such as going to Bluetooth 5.3, and even jumping on the processor is not a huge jump. Apple does have the A16 Bionic processor, but it's really powering a lot of the other new features. There is performance improvements with the A16 Bionic. You can see in benchmarks that, yeah, we have improved performance here. But for most people out there, these things are pretty granular. I want to talk about the big changes that have come to this phone. One of the first big changes you can't even see, and that is Apple's new SOS Via Satellite. And it's not just a Pro feature, it comes to the other iPhone 14 models too. And it's pretty cool. Basically, Apple has constructed a way for your iPhone to communicate with satellites when you're outside of cell phone range. So as long as you have a clear view of the sky, you're able to point your iPhone using this cool little interface that Apple's created to send in emergency signals through satellites. Apple's even put together a quick little startup screen that'll ask you a series of questions, making it really easy to get the information you need to get without having to type everything out and answer a bunch of questions in a back and forth. It can ask all of these questions right away, tap the screen just a few times, and your information is locked in and sent up to those satellites. If once it gets to that satellite, it is relayed to the emergency services. If the emergency services accept text notifications, then this will go straight through. If not, it'll go to one of several relay centers that Apple has set up that will receive your message, transcribe it, and call emergency services on your behalf. It's pretty cool. What's a little bit interesting is that Apple says 2 years of this service are included for free. I mean, you can't run call centers forever without any sort of, cost structure there. So 2 years of this service is built into the price of your iPhone. How Apple will charge us after remains to be seen. I wouldn't be surprised if Apple built it in via some sort of like iCloud Plus plan. Makes the most sense to me. It's just another one of Apple's services that it can offer. But hey, we'll see. And obviously no one's going to be forced to pay for that if they don't want or need that feature. Then we have the dynamic island. And I know a lot has already been written about it, including how ridiculous the name is, even if it is fairly apt. It just is one of those features that sticks out to you. And this is definitely something that makes the iPhone feel new again because you have this new on-screen element that wasn't there before, even if it is just a slimmed down version of the notch. But the way that it moves and reacts to what you do is super cool, and I'm really excited to see what Apple does with it in the future. As it stands now, there's a bunch of things that it can do, including live background activity such as music playing and AirDrop file coming in. Could be things like toggling your phone's mute switch on and off, unlocking via Face ID. All of that can be represented in the dynamic island. It'll change its shape and size based on whatever it is that you're doing. It really is cool to use and interact with. And sometimes I sit here thinking, I wish it did more. I wish more stuff came into that dynamic island. Maybe like a text message bubble could come out of it, or perhaps we could see regular notifications coming in through the dynamic island. But at the same time, I also don't want Apple to overuse it. Like, I don't know if those things are better coming through the dynamic island or not. But what I do know is this is a very early UI element for Apple, and Apple's likely to play around with it. I think we're going to see new changes to the dynamic island coming in future versions of iOS and maybe even new hardware versions with an iPhone 15 Pro. Unlike Apple's last big screen type design thing, the touch bar, I think the dynamic island is going to be here to stay. One thing I wanted to mention about the dynamic island is how it performs in super bright light. First, the iPhone 14 Pro does have a better display. It can now get up to 2000 nits in bright light, which can be up to twice as bright as it was before. And it's very good at that. Seriously, using this in super bright sunlight like I have right now is much better than the iPhone 13 Pro. And the iPhone 13 Pro wasn't bad, but there were times that it was still hard to see the screen. iPhone 14 Pro does a better job. But when there's that much bright light, you can start to see the difference between pixels and the actual borders of the dynamic island. But personally, I don't think it looks bad. It doesn't look crummy or anything else. I mean, at worst, it looks the equivalent of the notch in the 13 Pro. So, it's not bad. But you can start to lose the effect of what's screen versus pixels versus the bump and all of that when you have such bright light. Before we get too far into this review, I have to thank my sponsor for this video, Journey. Journey makes incredible accessories for all of your Apple gear. Whether you're looking for MagSafe chargers, whether you're looking for Apple Watch straps, whether you're looking for AirPods cases, or maybe you need some awesome new cases for your iPhone 14 Pro, they have you covered. Their new iPhone 14 cases are better than ever. They're using full-grain European leather that ages over time and develops a gorgeous, rich patina that's unique to you the more that you use it. Has raised cutouts around the camera and the screen to protect both of those, and has new machined metal buttons on the side that look gorgeous and give an amazing tactile feel that many leather cases do not have. They have a slim profile that fits good in your hand but still is very protective, has a microfiber lining to cradle your iPhone, and of course it is both Qi and MagSafe compatible, so you can use all of your favorite MagSafe accessories with your Journey case. If you'd like to check out any of Journey's accessories, there's a link for them down below in the description. Thank you again to Journey for sponsoring this video. I also want to talk about the cameras. This is another major improvement on the iPhone 14 Pro. Previous upgrades to the iPhone cameras were good. They were very good. But here, we're getting a bunch of new behind-the-scenes stuff, such as the new photonic engine that is changing the entire photo capturing process and applying deep fusion earlier in the process for medium to low light photos, all of this stuff. Do you need to know what is happening? Probably not. You just need to know that it's capturing better photos thanks to some software changes. But then we have hardware changes as well, including the new 48 megapixel wide-angle camera. So the iPhone 14 Pro still has 3 cameras on the back. You have the ultra-wide lens, which is a 12 megapixel camera. You have the main wide lens, which is a 48 megapixel camera, and then the telephoto lens, which gives you 3 times optical zoom and is a 12 megapixel camera. Apple has stuck with 12 megapixels since I believe like 2015, which is the first megapixel upgrade we've gotten in almost a decade, which is kind of nuts. And it still makes sense when you're capturing with these photos. Apple takes 4 of those pixels, combines them together into one super pixel in a process known as pixel binning to give us better performance in low light photos. And that's the biggest change I've noticed with this camera. I'm about to have my first kid, and I'm going to be taking a lot of photos inside and in low lights, and having improved low light performance is crucial. And that's been one of the biggest struggles in smartphone cameras. Whether you're looking at iPhones or other ones, they start to give you things like night mode that do help a bit, but not as much as actually improving the camera sensor. So by having 4 pixels that can capture light, bring all that information together into 1 pixel, it makes a difference. Shooting this versus my 13 Pro, I can easily see a difference in medium to low light photos in terms of how these photos are being captured. There's a lot more to get into detail, and I'll do a deep dive on the cameras at a later date, but right now I'm pretty happy with the improvements to the camera. Not only do we have that 48 megapixel camera, but Apple's made other improvements too. So we have cinematic mode now in 4K, about 24 and 30 frames per second. Cinematic mode was great before, but it didn't work super well all the time. There was weird things they would do to make things fuzzy that just didn't make sense, and it also was capped at 1080p. Now that it's in 4K, I feel like it's actually usable, something I can actually shoot something on and do something with. It's at a higher resolution, better frame rates, just all of this together. Then we have action mode, which literally shocked me of how good it was. I use a lot of gimbals. There's a new DJI gimbal out, and it's great. It's super handy, and I've used them quite a bit. But on the iPhone 14 Pro, most of the time, I'm not going to bother with it. I can run around my yard where there are holes and a very agile dog that I'm trying to keep in frame, and yet the footage still comes out buttery smooth. The biggest problem with action mode is it's not full 4K. It's technically 2.8K instead of like 1080 or 2K or full 4K, but hey, it's still above HD quality. I'm still happy with that. There is a bit of a crop, and you do have to have some good light to go along with it, but as long as it's well lit, especially outside, you're gonna have no problems with action mode. It's seriously cool, and the footage is much smoother than I ever thought it would be. My theme for this review is that the iPhone 14 Pro finally feels like a new iPhone again. When I got my iPhone 13 Pro, it didn't feel that much different from the iPhone 12 Pro. There was nice changes that I appreciated. The larger sensors on the cameras was a good addition that definitely yielded better photos. And cinematic mode was definitely new, even if it wasn't super usable quite yet right out of the box. But the iPhone 14 Pro does so many things that really do feel new. I've seen so many comments on my previous videos, on Twitter, on AppleInsider, of people who just say that the iPhone 14 Pro is literally the same as the iPhone 13 Pro. But it seems like such a bigger upgrade this year, like a big upgrade. You have the standard upgrades you'd kind of expect on a new version of the iPhone. We've got a beefier processor, increased memory or memory bandwidth. We have improvements to the camera software. We've got small tweaks to the brightness of the screen, slightly improved battery life. All of those things are here. But we also got things that feel fresh. The dynamic island is something that we haven't seen before. The way that the OS is able to integrate with it and blend that hardware and software feels very new, and I love it. I like it to do things because it's really cool to watch how it animates around. We have things like the camera that not only have big improvements to the quality of the camera with 48 megapixels, the biggest change in hardware we've had in nearly a decade, but you also have things like action mode and cinematic mode that actually works. We have things that are just via software that are coming to older versions of the iPhone, like lock screen widgets. Widgets coming to your home screen with iOS 15 was nice, but they had just moved from basically like that widget view to your home screen. Now that they're actually on your lock screen, they're beyond more usable. And we have an always-on display that I also love. I can just set this on my desk and it keeps me off my phone because I don't have to pick it up to look at it. I can clearly see what time it is. I can clearly see my activity rings. I don't even have to lift up my wrist to look at my Apple Watch to see those things. It's handy. Really handy, and I've been saying it for a while, the always-on display is something that I have lusted after on almost all of the Android handsets that I've reviewed. It's cool. So yeah, the iPhone 14 Pro actually feels new. We have that always-on display, the dynamic island, big changes to camera and camera modes, and iOS 16, bringing lock screen widgets and more. The iPhone 14 Pro is sure to be a fan favorite for any iPhone lover out there. Whether you are upgrading from an iPhone 12, even an iPhone 13, I think there's stuff to love with the iPhone 14 Pro. But I'm sure not everyone's going to agree. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments or on Twitter at Andrew_OSU. Thank you again to Alogic and Journey for sponsoring this video. Otherwise, I will catch you guys next time.